All right, and we're live with Ting-Ting from Survivor Island of Secrets in South Africa. Ting-Ting, how are you?
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. It's really fun to speak with you guys and glad to be here. How are you?
That's awesome. No, I'm doing really well. And like I just explained to you before we went live, what we're trying to do with this channel is sort of bring a bit of awareness of Survivor South Africa. And I'm sure we'll have some South Africans watching this later on as well. But we're trying to bring some awareness to the greater US people out there and potentially people over in Australia that now are also seeing your season over there about Survivor South Africa and what it's about. Because in Australia, especially and in the US, but especially in Australia, Survivor is loved and it's quite a big franchise. I did want to ask you, Ting-Ting, were you a fan of the show before you sort of applied for it, or did you go into this completely blindfolded and just hope for the best?
So I'm kind of in the middle ground. I'm not necessarily. I'm going to use my character. So I'm not necessarily, Jacques kind of level of Survivor fan.
Yep.
But I'm kind of more. I'm trying to think of somebody maybe like in between Tanya and Jacques. Like I'm right in the middle where I loved Survivor. Actually didn't get a
Similar to
ton
your
of
game.
watches. Hey,
Similar to your game, you were in between Tanya and Jacques in the game as well.
there we go. There we go. They got it spot on. They really did. So I never really got time to watch, but like I know the big characters. I know what they look like. I'm horrible with names, so I was sort of prepared.
No, fair enough. And I'm quite interested, like what was the process like for you to apply for the show? What made you apply for the show? And sort of how long did it take for you to actually get on the show from the point where you decided, I want to do this?
Yeah. So why I actually got on the show was it was the most random time. I was in the first year of my internship, and it was like later in the year. And internship is like ridiculous. I was in Durban and in one of the busiest hospitals. I literally was just scrolling through Instagram, and I was like, oh, and that week had been like a really horrible week. Like I lost a few patients, and I was like, oh, do I still want to do medicine? I was like, oh. And then I saw Nico Pinaggio join Survivor South Africa today. Enter now. Go on this beautiful adventure. And I was like, wow, Niku, you sold me. His smile sold me. The cinematography sold me. I was like, I'm applying. I'm applying. It was a very quick, actually ridiculously quick process. You submit a video. I shot it with my friend. Like it is the most cringest entry video ever. If anybody watches that, I apologize. Tingosaurus Rex. That's all I have to say. Then from that they did like a questionnaire thing, and all in all, I think it took like a month and a bit. Super quick. And the
Yeah.
team was really amazing. And like before I knew it, like a month later, they told me I wasn't allowed to tell anyone, and off I went. Well, actually, I had to apply with my hospital. My hospital manager had to know because he's the. But I made him sign an NDA as well, so he didn't tell anyone.
Nice.
Wow.
Now, it was quite interesting when you guys got on the beach, and I think it might have been Leanne who kind of alluded to the same thing, as they almost had this idea in their head of brains, beauty, and brawn when they had the different tribes out there. Because when we looked at your tribe, your tribe kind of looked like the brains tribe, and then you had like the brawn tribe being Rob Bentele's tribe, and the other tribe, I don't know if they were really beauty or whatever they would have fallen into. But it was quite interesting when you looked at the three tribes. It looked like you guys were a bit smaller in stature, but potentially you had some of the smarter players there. Is that kind of how it came across for you guys as well when you were standing on the mat there and you were like looking at the other teams and sizing them up?
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. That was hilarious because like I've asked Leroux, the producer, and he still won't tell us. Like he's like, oh, whatever you think. I love him. He's so cool. I think Jacques thought he was part of the Brawns. He was in the wrong group.
Oh,
He
really?
kept mentioning that. So I don't know. I also think we had a good mixture of people. But I definitely think we were the brains, definitely. Even though you see Felix
Felix.
and Dante, they're like big muscular guys. Oh my word. If you have a conversation with them, super intelligent, really just all rounders. So I definitely think we were the brains. And
Yeah, and I was quite
if you watch our
interested.
first challenge,
Yeah.
you would see, you would see.
Firstly, I love the comment, the Lara Croft comment about Steffi, and I fully agree with you. She looked like Lara Croft coming in there, and she was an absolute beast throughout the season, just a really physical specimen. And a lot of people don't know this, that if they watch the show, they might think that she's only a beauty pageant queen, but she actually has done a lot in, I believe, Olympics for Namibia.
Yep.
She's gone and played seven, so a really physical, athlete in that tribe. So they really had the size and the strength in their tribe. I was kind of interested, rolling sort of back to your own tribe. Quibus was the person that you guys selected as the leader here in the early stages. How did that conversation go on the mat? How was that decided? Is what I'm sort of interested in, because I was quite interested to see that Quibus was selected opposed to Dante, and then obviously Quibus decides that Jark is the weakest person in the tribe. So, can you talk to a little bit of that?
So I think very, very, very early on, it's you realize Survivor is a game of instincts as well, and I think just with in terms of Dante is very, very, very. He's like an introvert, complete introvert. But once you crack through the layers, amazing, amazing guy with so many facets. But in that initial stage, it's like he has a wall, and it's just like
Mm.
he's very like stern. So he
Kind of like dads, you
um,
don't want to get him angry.
yeah, yeah, no, it's actually he's not angry. He's just
Yeah.
like that's just his resting face. um, and I think Quibus was the most kind of outspoken. Immediately, he was like, "Yo, guys, come, let's do this, let's do this," and he was like so charismatic, and we were like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, this guy, he's alpha. He's alpha. We're gonna choose him. He's gonna know exactly what he's doing." And actually, amazing enough, he did an amazing job because Jacques, although weakest, was very intelligent, and I think any of us would have done well. But sorry, I had to interject. That sly fox. Oh
Yeah.
my god! If you watch that episode, I was like, Jacques. This is why Felix and I were rolling, just going off the island because he was busy fending for himself.
Yes, and it made for great TV, that moment with you guys going there, obviously not aware that you're helping his game along the way. And he very brilliantly got rid of the I think it was the bag that the
Yeah.
advantage was into the side, so no one noticed that at the end of it. Now, it was quite interesting because here in the early stages, when you guys get to your beach and you start forming those connections, obviously you're going to form a relationship with Jark later on that we're going to see on the TV show. We don't see it immediately in episode one so much, or two,
Yeah.
but here in the early stages, there's a lot of conversation with Tanya coming to you, wanting to create a girls' alliance with Meryl. And then as soon as Meryl walks away, it looks like it's almost instantly that she goes back to you and says, listen, we're probably going to have to get rid of Meryl because she's going to be the weakest one of the three of us. Can you talk me through like those early stages and sort of how you bonded with Tanya and what that relationship and that dynamic was with her on the tribe specifically? And did you feel like if the girls actually stuck together, that maybe you would have had more options in that tribe as a group?
Yeah, great. So that's a really, really good question. I think like first to say, and I think this is well known, like, they film you for 24 hours and, the episodes are only like what, 45 minutes and there's three tribes, there's 3 days condensed in it. So a lot of things aren't filmed. Well, or
Hmm.
are filmed, but don't make it to the cut if it doesn't,
Hmm.
kind of streamline the story. So I thought Tanya was really amazing. Such an interesting character. They show you the times when she's the most, at her like, highest points and stuff like that. But she's actually a really mellow chick. Like she's super cool, really down to earth. Like she's like Mother Nature in a nutshell. So I really, really, really enjoyed her personality and who she was. But I think I got knocked by reality really quickly because you forget that it's a game. Like you go on there and you're not there to make friends. You're there to make alliances. You're there
Hmm.
to win the game. And in the end, you need to understand that you're going to stab the people in the back. And
Hmm.
I think I didn't go in thinking like that. I just went in being like, ah, this is like a doll. Look at how nice these people are. Oh, new friends. Yay. A little bit, childish of me. Very, very, very childish, actually. But initially, so when kind of, when Meryl came to me, she's so intelligent. Like, she's a mom of three. She's really good. And she knows the show, everything. So she's like, girl, like, no. She's a troublemaker. She instigates. There's a huge target on her back. Like, whatever game you want to play, she's going to go out and just ruin that. So we need to get her out. With regards to if we stuck to the lines, I don't think we would have won, um, in that sense, because there were four guys, four
Hmm.
versus three girls, and Meryl, um, from my observations, she was very into, like, she was in the guys group already. Her, Felix, Dante, Three Musketeers, couldn't get through to that. So they were kind of the secret alliance that
Hmm.
I think wasn't spoken about, but I'm pretty sure they had like unspoken alliances to each other. They gelled. So I don't think a all girls alliance would have worked.
And that kind of answers another question that I was going to ask you about Dante and Meryl and if they were that close right from the start of the game, because obviously that sort of alliance and that pairing becomes a lot more important as the season continues on. And obviously Felix, another person there that we see probably being at his most extreme a few times, not wanting to get along with Tanya, trying to fight for a specific spot under the shelter, which was probably played up. And I don't know if that happened all the time. Felix, in general, on the show seemed like someone that was quite difficult to get along with because, he was kind of giving people orders and, kind of almost like he was the boss of the camp. Was that kind of his personality out on the island? And again, listen, I know that when you're out there and you're not eating and that kind of stuff, obviously people are going to play on your nerves a little bit more than usual. But was that a very fair representation of how he came across in camp in general, or was that also something that just got blown out of proportion a little bit with the limited amount of showtime that we saw?
So I think everything that you see is very realistic, and things did happen. It's just with, like, as I said, like, there's not enough film to really represent both sides. But Felix, I love him. He's such an amazing dude. And if he ever watches this, like, I'm not afraid to say that he's a big tough guy, but he's got such a very, very, very soft soul. Had a very tender moment with him, um, just before I got voted out, actually. And actually, when you saw him kind of barking orders and whatever, he was already hungry. Like, there was, it was really funny. I think on day one, we were like in the midway of building, and he was like, "Yo, guys, I'm hungry, hey." And everyone just started laughing. We're like, "Felix, shut up. We don't need to hear about your hunger. We don't want to hear about hunger." So he was a little bit hangry. He and I shared a really cool. We love food, and he loves Chinese food as well. So, like, we bonded over that. But there was a moment where, like, I don't even think, I don't know if the camera crew even got a chance to get it, but he was just sitting in the kind of the shelter, and he looked really down. And I just went up to him and I was like, "Hey, man, you alright?" And he was like, "Yes, dude. Like, this is real. Hey." He's like, "I miss my wife. I've left her at home, and I'm just a bit worried." And yeah, we just hugged it out. And I was just like, wow, that was the first time I was like, wow, Felix is a person. He's not just a huge, like, towering monster protecting us. He's a lovely human. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Felix is the kind of character that I love. Like Felix and Dante, the complex characters, there's more to them than what the show can possibly show you, but it's also the big characters. And I guess Tanya kind of falls into that. And you've touched a little bit on Tanya here. And, obviously there being a lot that we didn't see. But one of my favorite scenes here in the early stages is you guys sitting there at nighttime with Tanya telling you guys stories of her life and Jack saying that it just gets more and more out there as it continues. And
yeah.
obviously, for people who watch this, who are really big Survivor fans, it kind of reminds us of someone like a coach, and Token Cheese. He's very similar where he tells all these ridiculous stories. Tanya comes back in episode 4 with the cane, similar to Coach from, I think he was on Exile Island and she was on the island, of Secret. So there's a lot of sort of similarities that we can pull between these different characters in there that makes it quite interesting. One of the things I wanted to touch on is that on the night that you got voted out, at the end of that, your tribe receives a flint. So did you guys not have a flint or fire for the first 7 days while you were out there?
Yeah.
So what did you guys eat?
It was so rough, Chris. Oh my God. You think, like, I don't know. In my mind, I was like, this is a TV show. There must be, some help, or like, I don't know, somebody slips you like an energy bar or something so you don't die. No. Like, you sign on to this. This is Survivor. They want to push your body. They want to shoot up the adrenaline and the cortisol levels so high. You're like, you're in survival mode. And first, okay, so the weather, so I noticed in the show, they did make the coloring a little bit more tropical, but I can promise you for 10 days that I was there, it was raining. There was one day of like a little bit of sun, but it was raining completely. Everything was soaked. Before I went on, I looked at like Survivor videos on how to do like a bow fire starter. Like Tanya and I both bonded on that. We watched the same video. We were trying to start fire. Everything was wet. Trying to like dry it with our body heat, flapping it around. Nothing worked. And so we won a bag of rice, which I don't know. I think Tanya or Felix uses as like a pillow. Never use it. We won a string of bananas. Can I tell you, Chris? Most amazing bananas you will ever taste in your life. They're this small though. We were allowed one each day by our team captain. At that time, it wasn't. I don't think it was. At that time, all of us decided. I think Quibus was still on the Island of Secrets. One banana, and on challenges, 2 bananas. And we won a fishing thing. Dante went and spearfished Nemo, and that was the worst sushi I've ever tasted in my life. Me being the doctor, I had to skin this fish with a rusty ass panga, trying to, gut this fish because nobody wants to gut it. I'm gutting it, cleaning it out, and everyone's trying to eat. But while you eat it, it still pulsates. And I was like, no, guys, I can't eat this. I'm so sorry. I'd rather starve. Like, you guys can eat the fish. I'm not eating Nemo and his friends. Thank you.
I don't know how I would react if I was out there and I needed to eat it, but I'm not a big raw fish person in any case. Like, it's just not for me. So I feel like I would have, like, obviously if you're that hungry, you probably would just, just pretend it's bacon and just eat it, or chicken, But
some people
I can only imagine.
I couldn't. I really couldn't. Yes.
Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you is that, early in this episode 3, finally you found out that Jock had some like he calls it armory, or things in his armory. There's some tools that he could work with, and he talks about the fact that he's got an idol and he's got an advantage there, and we can see him sort of talking to you about that and bringing you in to obviously show trust, and this made you quite confident and happy about where you were at this stage in the game, because obviously if your allies got this, then he wants to work deep with you and continue to go further. What do you feel like made Jock so comfortable? Because it doesn't get explained that well in the show, where we go from you and Tanya getting a lot of screen time and a little bit of conversations there with you and Meryl, and a little bit of conversations with Felix and things like that, but we don't really get much of you and Jock running up to this point. Did you do a lot of work with him to make him feel very comfortable with you prior to that, so that he would come to you and tell you about this idol, and what were we missing basically on the show?
I totally agree with you. I think there was just a bit of time that was kind of left out. I think that there was a scene at the skinning of the fish scene. That was such a cool one. But I actually think one of the cameramen, while they were filming, fell and actually got really, really, really injured, because the rocks were like very slippery. and he was trying to get the best angle, and actually felt, I just like, there was a huge gash on his leg, whatever. So I think that might have been the reason why it got cut out, because it didn't connect.
Mhm.
But he made such funny jokes, like his dad's a doctor as well, so he made doctor jokes, and we
This
really
being
bonded
Jock,
over.
right?
Huh?
This being Jock about his dad being a doctor as
Yes.
well.
Yeah. His dad's a doctor as well. So we bonded over that, and so that was kind of one scene that maybe not many people saw. There were other scenes, like there was a short segment where he's cutting like the days on,
Mhm.
on the flagpole, and we had a lot of conversation there as well. And it, there were like random moments that we had, this small talk, but like important small talk. Like there was another talk where he told me about his wife and how he went on a cruise and a honeymoon, and we bonded over that, and it was really cool, like just nerdy stuff we talked about. So
Nice.
it's things that aren't important in the sense for the show, but it's like human interaction where you saw each other gel, and I think that's why it got left out. But
Mhm.
we definitely had a stronger relationship than what the show could show, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes 100% sense because, as a big Survivor fan, someone that, has watched all of the seasons really that you can possibly watch, I always
Yes.
look at it and I think to myself, the biggest mistake that you can make in the show is to tell someone else that you've got an idol. So if you're going to tell someone else that you've got an idol, then you really have to trust this person. So for me, there had to be a really strong bond there, one that I couldn't fully appreciate as a viewer because we only saw him very quickly tell you about that. And then, obviously it's probably well spoken about, and you probably get it every day still now, and you've probably got dips on being able to give Jark a lot of crap for the fact that he didn't actually play the idol correctly on you at the tribal council. But I
Yes.
do believe going into that tribal council that he was always going to play it on you. Now, one of the
Yes.
things for me that again, it doesn't make so much sense on the TV show. And it gets explained by Nico in the next episode where he says Jark got paranoid and he saw the looks of confusion and that made him play the idol for himself. Was there also things said in that tribal council that potentially, because obviously the tribal councils go on a lot longer than what we see on
Yeah.
TV? Were there things said in there that probably could have made Jark a bit more uncomfortable? Because from what we've seen in the TV show, they made it pretty clear that you were going home and you were you were playing it up that you were pretty
Yeah.
content to go home
Yeah.
at that point as well. So it seemed pretty straightforward. What were
Yeah.
we missing potentially in there? Is there anything else that you could, obviously in that moment you would have been pretty furious at Jark for not playing it. But now that you think back about it, is there anything else that we could have missed in regards to why he played that idol on himself and not on you?
So I remember there was a scene, well, not a scene, but kind of a situation where before we left for tribal council, we actually grouped together. Oh, excuse me. We got together, and I actually asked people, and I'd be like, "Are you voting me out, dude? Like, what's happening?" And it kind of came out, and something, I can't remember, but something along the line, I said something that must have shaken um, Jacques, because he's so clever, and he's watched so many episodes. He's such a good, Survivor fan and player that I
Mhm.
think he overthought. He overjudged me. He was like, "Ah, she's very clever. She's gonna double stab me and get in with the group." So I think that's what he thought. I said something. I think I said, even when a rabbit gets cornered, it'll bite and it'll attack you.
Mm.
So I think I also said that in tribal council, and I think when they must have cut that out, and when he heard that, he was like, "Whoa, this rabbit's gonna bite me." So I'm gonna save my own ass because she thinks I'm too clever and she's gonna vote me out. Whereas me, there's nothing happening up here. There's just do 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 do. I'm getting voted out. Someone's gonna save me, yay! Like overestimated me. I think
No,
that's why.
100%. And it comes back to the fact that, as a fan, he probably was overthinking the fact that he told you he had the idol, he told you he had the
Yep.
advantage. So, if you were someone that wanted to make a big move, you could have taken him out at that point with an idol, with him playing the idol on you, and then something happening. And I was thinking about it because there's not very often when you see tribal councils happening with the person and tribal council being as content about the fact that they're going to go home as you were. So that probably for him as well. He, being a fan, he would have been like, "Why is she not even trying to fight here at all?" You know. But he does give you the little fist pump and everything before he goes up,
Yeah.
and then ends up playing the idol in himself. And like you quite rightfully said, I think like for me personally, Jark is was one of my favorite, if not my favorite player of this season, because I just love the underdog story that he had
Yeah.
throughout the whole season, and he had to work from so many places that he was in such a big disadvantage. He had to work his way back into the game a few times. Like he was
Yeah.
the cat with 9 lives that just couldn't get to the end completely at the end there. But hats off for him for, I guess, correcting things later on down the line. But you had a few things happening there. That was a bit of a series of unfortunate events. Firstly, with
Oh,
Jark playing the idol incorrectly, and then Tanya being the person that gets selected to go to the Island of Secrets, and that ultimately is gonna save her. Looking at that specific challenge where you and Tanya are sitting out in the challenge, did you put up a little bit more of a fight to actually be a part of that challenge, or were you more than happy not to compete and to let Meryl compete instead? Because I feel like you could have probably, you looked like they kept saying you were the weakest person in the tribe, but I didn't. You look pretty much physically like you're in shape. You probably could have done, in my opinion. Sorry, Meryl, like I don't know, but you could have probably given her a run for her money.
so I think I went in there. Yo, I'm so sorry about my voice, Chris. It's
That's
morning
fine.
here. My voice hasn't woken up. So I think with that challenge, and with a lot of things, I was also a lot in my own head. There was another moment that I think that wasn't showed because it just wasn't caught. But Meryl said to me, she said, "You're very guarded. Like, are you okay? Like, what's happening? Like, you're very, very guarded." And that kind of sparked me to try and speak more, because what I was on the island is very different from what I was or am in real life. Like, I'm more talkative, I'm more engaging, um, and I was very just taken aback and kind of overwhelmed. And so I tried to sit out things, thinking that I wasn't good or strong enough to do things. And I think that why I sat out of that one was because prior to that, or sorry, I've got my timeline a little bit confused, but I don't know
So
where
this
the
was the
water
one where you
challenge
run.
is.
So this was the one where you go through the
Yes,
mud and
with
you
the
had to
mud.
go to get a flag. Yeah, and
Did the water
both.
challenge
Yeah,
happen before that? Remember
yes,
when Steffi ran like on water basically? She was like,
yes. That was before that. That
yes.
was that was episode 2. Yep,
Okay, so that was before
and
that.
yeah,
No,
it
no.
was before that. Yep.
Okay, okay, okay. All right, all right. I think. Okay, so then I'm not sure what I was thinking there, but I was just thinking like, oh, Meryl, she does yoga, so she's a yoga and Pilates instructor. So I was like, oh, she must be way more, fit than I am. I only do, I don't know, CrossFit or like Kayla sometimes. And so I thought, let me sit up, let her do it. And when I saw the challenge, I was like, actually, I've got the height advantage. So I could have just pulled myself much higher, and also Felix and Meryl were quite a height difference.
Mm.
So while Felix was already at the top, Meryl's still trying to pull herself because he's so much taller than her. So I think in terms of coordination, maybe it would have been a bit better, but
Yeah,
I don't
didn't work
know.
out
I
that
just
way.
don't know.
Sadly, not this time.
Yeah, yeah. But it looked like a fun. Oh my gosh, just getting in the mud. That just looked like so much. I just have to give the crew just. It wasn't amazing. Like all the challenges were just incredible. Very, very, very amazing. They did well. Good planning.
100%. Now, I am quite interested. You mentioned that when you went into the show, when you were out there, you weren't your normal self like you would be in your normal daily life, and just be, I guess, a bit more social. Because the way that you're interacting here, you come across as super social. I'm like, why would I wouldn't want to vote you out. Like, I mean, we're getting along pretty well
Thank
here,
you.
so I would have been out before you for sure. But one of the questions I want to ask you is that in Survivor South Africa, we I can't remember having seen someone that is Asian and from South Africa on the show over in Survivor South Africa as well. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as the only Asian person on the show, or Asian South African, whatever the right term for that would be, on the
Yes.
show, was that something that weighed heavily on your mind? And was that one of the reasons where you kind of felt a little bit out of your element when you were on the show because you didn't have anybody there that you could identify with in that way? Did that play a role for you out there, or wasn't it really something in your mind at that point?
Actually, that's really amazing, Chris, and a great kind of thing, that's a subtle thing that you notice. It was a huge thing for me, because I also noticed that there weren't much Asian representations, and I think the first thing that people think is, especially if I go overseas, they're like, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "I'm from South Africa." They're like, they don't go, "Why are you black?" They're like, "Why are you Asian?" Like, that's the
Yeah.
most random thing. You're from Africa, like what? And so that I kind of grew up with that quite a lot, and very, very, um, uh, it was something that I could see, and was very much in the front of my mind. And also the stereotype of being
Hmm.
like Asian and smart and whatever, that I tried to downplay as well. So I told people like, yeah, I'm not clever, whatever, whatever. Try to downplay that so that people don't think that I'm plotting and whatever. So that was kind of my gameplay was, go slow, go really quiet, like be the snake in the long grass, and once they
Hmm.
step on you, it's like didn't get to happen, but it was a cool idea, Ting. It was a cool idea. Um, so that was a big thing for me, representation. And also, actually, after Survivor, I got a lot of messages from South African Asian girls, even all over the world. And they're like, "Yo, it was really cool, just seeing you on. And although it was short, it was really, really cool." So that's a big thing. And also for me, like, South Africa is a rainbow nation. Like, just as much as you'll get all kinds of people, you get Asian people as well. So don't forget about us.
Yeah, no, and it was brilliant. And one of my best friends here in Auckland, New Zealand, he's Chinese, Chinese Kiwi, and his girlfriend is Chinese as well. And I thought she was from China. And the first time I met her, she actually is from Johannesburg in South Africa as well. And I didn't realize it because when I saw her the first time, I wouldn't have known. So it's pretty exciting as well. So for us, it was exciting to see someone that is Asian in South Africa be on the
Yeah.
show. And I was really rooting for you to go far. It was
Oh,
disappointing to see you go out when you did, but I mean, still to have you on the show, I think is a great sort of move forward for a franchise like Survivor South Africa, which I feel like Survivor South Africa is one of the more inclusive Survivor franchises out there. I know the US is trying to up their representation over in the USA as well to have
mm,
more players of color in there as well. So I think that you carried yourself well in the show, so you should be proud of that. And I was more worried. I was sort of more thinking about like how was it for you being out there and not having that person that you could sort of, I guess, see that's similar to yourself, and if that sort of took away some of the confidence. But it does sound like you found a little bit in that of that within Jark, and sadly that didn't continue to go as far as you would like for it to go within in this season in Survivor. Outside of Jark, I'm assuming you're still in contact with Jark. Who else have you stayed in contact with, and do you have any other friendships that you've made with other Survivor players that potentially played in some of the seasons you weren't in?
So I must say that all of us, well, I don't think that there was much bad blood. I'm not too sure because I got voted off third. So a lot of the things, the subtle things that happened. But when it was the reunion, I didn't detect any bad blood. Everyone was just having a joel. I think, yeah, Leon and I, we really struck it off really well when I was in Durban. We went for like a run together, like this obstacle course, and I was like, yeah, this is Survivor 2.0, hey.
Yeah.
And I think I even we got in contact with another older survivor, Tejan, and it was really cool. Like we hung out with also Jean from the previous season, with Werner, and a lot of people. I think we keep in contact, and our lives happen, but there's something special about the time that we all spent on Survivor. Even Felix as well, when he was over, like we chat, and we may not see each other because I mean it's also COVID time. but we keep in contact and we check up on each other. And there's something special when you've experienced such hectic things in such a short time. It's like the time that you would have spent curating that relationship is all condensed. And another amazing thing is that I would never have met Meryl. I would never have met someone like Dante or like, Tanya or even Jacques. Like, even though we're both nerds, we would have never made a friendship outside of Survivor. And that's something I think nobody really talks about because they're all about gameplay and winning the million and all of that. But it's like the cool, awesome little side things that you get. Realizing that, yeah, you make friends from all over the place.
100%. It's a small little family that you get around the survivor world, and
Totally.
especially in a place like Survivor South Africa, where you don't have that many seasons yet, so that circle is even smaller of people who have played the game before. And I think it's great for people to put themselves out there and go and have a challenge. If someone is afraid of applying, and we had spoke about this a little bit in the previous episode as well, and they're afraid of being somebody that gets voted out early. At the end of the day, no one wants to get voted out early, but it's not the worst thing when you've gone out there and you've met all these great people. You've got stories you can tell your grandchildren or your kids one day about living out in Samoa, which is a beautiful place. I've been to Samoa before. Obviously, I didn't have to go live out in the bush like you guys did and sleep on bamboo under palm fronds. But I've definitely been there. It's a beautiful place. The one thing that I did pick up on your season is the amount of rain that you guys had. Like, it did seem like it was raining almost every single day compared to a lot of other Survivor seasons that we get out there. Was it really that bad as when you guys were on there? Like, how much actual days did you get without any rain?
So I think I keep telling people, I brought the rain. And when I left, the rain stopped. But legit, there were two cyclones. When I was voted off, they put us in a hotel, and I was watching the news, and there were two cyclones, and they were telling me they were coming straight for the island, and somehow I don't know what happened, like the current changed or something, but they got swept away. So it was really actually quite dangerous. And I don't think anyone mentioned that, and I don't think it was something, but the crew was in danger. The everybody involved was kind of, they could have been in danger. It was raining so badly, and I just, just really everything was wet. I think most of us had like trench foot as well. Our fingers were permanently shriveled. Um, we were basically just if you were thirsty, you would just go wring your clothes and be like, it's fine. Got some rainwater there. So it was tough like that. And I actually want to touch on what you said about applying. Like, I agree, dude. If people are scared to apply, they must just do it. Like, one of the reasons I applied as well, and I was like, I may not be the fastest or whatever, but if I can do it, anyone can. It's an experience, and the people doing it know what they're doing, and they want people who will fit in with the different players and create an interesting story. So no matter how little or large your role is, you have a role, and that's important.
Yeah, and I think the other really interesting thing is if you look at Survivor as a whole throughout the world, all the different US seasons, all the Australian seasons, it's not necessarily always the biggest and the strongest person that wins. Sometimes it's the
Yeah.
oldest person.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is the youngest and the smartest or the best looking person. Sometimes it's someone you would never ever expect win the show. And there's been so many different types of winners that have played the game in so many different ways. Like, your strategy of playing could have been the winning strategy in a different season. It just depends on who you're playing the game with. So I do think people should apply. Now, if you had a message for anybody that is applying for Survivor South Africa season 9, because obviously season 8 is already filmed and we'll be seeing
Yeah.
that pretty soon. I'm really excited for that. What
I'm
would
so
be
excited
your
for
sort
that
of
one.
it's going to be cool. And what's your message to new people that potentially want to go out there? What advice do you have for them if they were thinking of applying and going on there?
I would definitely give you the corniest, cliche thing to say is that the only person stopping you is yourself. And if you want to do something, flip and go for it. I mean, we've been through a pandemic, you know, like I've had close friends pass away because of COVID. And it's like we don't realize how little time we have. And nothing, whatever plan you have in your mind and the deadline you have and kind of the timeline, things are always going to happen. So why not create something that you want and for that to happen? Like, for instance, my internship was 2 years. It got extended by a month. And that meant that my community service had to be extended by a month. But without that, I wouldn't have gone to the hospital that I am in. I wouldn't have met the people that I have. So don't let your own mind, like your own self and whatever checklist you need, if you want to apply for Survivor, go for it. It's an experience. It's a one in a lifetime experience, and you'll learn so much about yourself as well from it, which was a byproduct that I never really thought. And you get put in such an animalistic, basic kind of state. You learn to appreciate the little things in life. Just having food, shelter, and it sounds so cliched because we're taught this. Oh, the hungry kids in Africa don't have food. Whatever. When you're in that situation, you start to realize, and you be grateful for what you truly have, and really you want to go out and help people, and you realize that for some people this is a reality. They survive every day on the streets, and with increasing unemployment rates, and it's like, you know, go for it. If it's something that you want to do it, and you'll learn so much more, and you'll get so much more than you can ever think.
That's awesome. And a quick question here. If the South African producers ever came back with some sort of a twist where there's like a second chance to redemption for players over there in South Africa, would you ever pick up the torch again? Or would you say that that side is sort of the spirit seeking adventure has moved on and you're not going to go out there again?
Well, I never say never, and anything can happen. So, well, let's see if it goes with my busy schedule. I hate to say that. It sounds so like horrible, but being a doctor is you're a little bit less flexible. But yeah, I mean, never say never.
100%. I think you should always keep your options open no matter what. And for me personally, I would love to see you get another opportunity, whatever the theme of the season would be. I don't think that we'll probably see an all-star season until maybe
Yeah,
season 10. And if the show keeps going long enough, then maybe we'll see different types of themes like you have over in the States where there's like a second chance ballot or different things that you could potentially sort of see yourself go back out there as well. And I'm really excited to see season 8 as well. I think we're all very excited, especially with everything that's gone on over the last year. We can do with a little bit of entertainment. And I do want to say, condolences to your family or the people that you know there as well. I've also lost some family members because of COVID in South Africa, especially in South Africa. It seems like it's hit the country pretty well. And in New Zealand, I've said it to so many people over here, we're so fortunate that we are an island and that we've been able to isolate ourselves from the world quite a bit. But with that, it's kind of like the same feeling that you have in South Africa if you isolate yourself in a house and you can't see other people. We haven't been able to travel or go to other places, or we haven't been able to welcome people from other countries coming in here. So we're all very desperate, I think, for human connection. And if you can play a show like Survivor where you get that human connection, maybe sometimes it's not the only reason you go on there and people will backstab you. I think that overall it's still worth it. Now, Ting-Ting, is there anything I didn't ask you that you would have wanted me to ask, or any extra tidbits you wanted to give us here before we move on and let you go with your busy day ahead with you as well?
Thank you, Chris. I think I fully enjoyed your interview. You're such an awesome guy, and you asked the most amazing questions. I can't think off my mind. I think, yeah, you really touched on amazing things. If whatever you're doing right now doesn't work out, journalism, you know,
I'll think about it. Well,
but yeah, I think most of it.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, stay on the line just for a minute there while I say goodbye to everybody here. I just want to have a quick conversation with you on how I'll share the link. Guys, if you're listening to this afterwards, it's been great having you on board. Ting-Ting, do you have anything you want to shout out? Like any social media? You've got your Instagram, maybe give that out there if you want people to go and follow you.
Sure thing. It's at Tingaling93, and I haven't posted for a while, but I'm planning to post more. I have a YouTube channel, but there's some cringe things. Please watch it and laugh. I think it's the Ting Goes vlog. So
The
You
dingo's
can
vlog.
see your
Okay, well,
hand.
we'll get both of their pieces of information and we'll put it into the description for this video later on as well. And if you're watching it, you'll, in a few seconds from now, you'll see myself and Riley back to discuss any of the things for these episodes 3 and 4 that we didn't touch on in this interview. As always, Ting-Ting, thank you very much. All right, Riley. So that was Ting-Ting on the show with sadly only myself there because obviously you were a bit occupied yesterday. Couldn't jump on that interview as well. Ting-Ting did say hello. So I'll pass that on. Great conversation with Ting-Ting. About her experience on the show. We specifically went into things that happened there on episodes 1 and 2 and episodes 3, and some of those early stages for her and the tribe and the things that she experienced on that side. And she gave us some great insights about what happened the night of the tribal council, that Jark actually played the idol on himself. So I don't think we need to touch on that any more than what she already went into as well. But what we're going to do for the next 20 or 30 minutes or so, we're just going to recap some of the things that happened that I couldn't go into with Ting-Ting on the show, because obviously Ting-Ting wasn't involved in some of these other tribes, and she wasn't obviously there for episode 4. So we're going to touch on some of that. And I want to start off with Saula. In episode 3, they go back to the beach after having voted Paul out. And finally, Sipe is being made aware of the Amigos alliance here, and she feels really in there. She thinks that, hey, I'm comfortable. I'm a part of the crew now here. I'm the 5th person in. And I'm thinking to myself, you seem very comfortable with this alliance, but you're at the bottom of this alliance at the moment.
Especially after losing 2 immunity challenges back to back and losing that flint as well that Paul obviously took with him when he was eliminated. Shockingly, might I add. But no, Sipe seems to be almost misguided by her position in the tribe right now. And the 4 there at Saula are really keeping that tight and under wraps right now. So it is interesting to see that Sipe is so comfortable, yet she's on the bottom of the tribe. And we know that Saula so far haven't shown their strength in challenges, despite how strong they look on the outside.
Yeah, it's actually been quite funny looking at Sola, and obviously they've been the physical beasts going into it. And I spoke to Ting-Ting a little bit about this. When we see these different tribes sort of lining up, they were kind of the brawn tribe. If you look at the sheer stature of the people that were there, they were pretty big physical players, but they haven't really performed. And one of the other things we also see here on the beach is Sipe and Nathan's relationship, with Sipe really mothering him, braiding his hair, taking care, making sure he's okay. Quite an interesting dynamic that is being formed there between those two, and potentially shows us a little bit about why Nathan ended up going home in the previous episode.
Yeah, Nathan really is struggling, but he does have those strong relationships, and that's, I think, where Nathan benefits as opposed to the others on the tribe, like Leanne and Paul. He really built that relationship on day one and went forward from there. He seems to be loved by the tribe, obviously, despite his weakness at the moment in the challenges due to his foot injury. But it is nice to see that CP is sort of nurturing Nathan here. Whether that does too much for her position in the tribe, though, obviously we'll have to wait and see. But we do know it's still early in the game, so there's obviously time to recover there.
Now, in the challenge here, I spoke to Ting-Ting about sitting out in this challenge, and she said it came down to confidence and her not knowing if she could add more value than a Meryl would in this specific contest. But in hindsight, she thinks maybe she could have done better, because apparently she does CrossFit. So you'd think if you do CrossFit, you'd be pretty fit when you do some of these obstacle courses and things out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're doing CrossFit, then sure, why not go for it? But I do understand. I mean, you don't want to be the goat for the tribe, the person that loses it for them. So certainly, when you have a 2 tribe member advantage over Saula, I mean, if you have to be rested and you get that opportunity, I wouldn't mind taking that chance, just because it covers your base, and that way you can't have the blame shifted onto you. In that, you're the one that lost the challenge for the tribe. I do like how South African Survivor handle these 3 tribe formats here with the immunity challenges, and they have that
Mhm.
first challenge for the first immunity, and then the second challenge obviously is head to head. I like how they do that, as opposed to in the US versions and the Australian versions, where they just have all 3 tribes playing as one, and the first 2 tribes take it. I do find that really fascinating, and it kind of levels the playing field as well, I thought.
Yeah, I really like the fact that they, in that first challenge, it's round one for the immunity, but it's also a reward challenge as well. So you have an extra stake or an extra thing there. Not that immunity isn't enough, but they kind of bring both of those challenges in together, which opens it up for there to be a second challenge for immunity. And what it does is it really makes it a little bit more difficult for the team who is going to be the second team to go and get the immunity, because they have to fight for it twice. I guess both teams who don't win it, they have to go and fight for it twice, but also gives both tribes a bit of a fair chance. Because if you're just not that good at puzzle, if you're just not that good at doing like a circus trick type of immunity challenge, or you're just not that good at doing like a physical thing, at least you're going to get another shot at trying to win it if you completely got blown out of the water. Now, the other thing I did want to touch on very briefly here is Rocco and his celebration dance in the tribe. Now, Rocco to me is a fascinating character, because when I first saw him on the show, he very much reminded me of a Chris Noble. I don't know if it's just because they're both blonde guys, they're both good looking, physically fit type of guys, but he's clearly playing a great social game here in the early stages. People are seeing him as a threat. Jeffrey and Mike, they definitely know that he's a threat down the line, but I do think that people can't help but like him.
Yeah, he has also formed a strong bond with Letitia as well, who you would think would be the first person out of the tribe, but it seems Letitia is really ingratiating herself with everyone else. But we do see that Mike and Jeffrey, they get the favor of Rosalie and Mumba, and they take them into this Type 4 alliance with the view of getting Rocco out, possibly in this early stage of the game, because they just view him as a massive threat. And he does appear, he's this massive social threat, physical threat. I mean, you look at him and you think, how am I going to beat him in the challenge? Really, I mean, it's him and Rob. They're the two biggest players this season, and they're both playing great social games right now as well, which is just crazy. You don't normally see that on US Survivor season, where you have just these macho men that don't have much other than that.
100%. Now, we touched a bit on it with Ting-Ting, and I know you weren't a part of that interview, about Tanya being the person that ultimately gets sent to the Island of Secrets here. We didn't really talk about, with Solar, what sort of made them want to choose Tanya to go there. And I think in the episode, they explained it as Tanya being probably the person that looked the weakest, and they could probably pick up that there was some vibes there with people not really listening to Tanya or wanting her to be part of the challenges. So they probably could pick up that there's a good chance that Tanya was the person there at the bottom. And obviously, as a tribe, Sohula has just lost so many challenges going into this one. They try to even the playing field. And funny enough, was it LeMay, this tribe? I keep getting the tribes confused, but their tribe, Tanya's tribe, and the tribe that Dante and Jark and all those guys are in at this stage were one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful tribe. So they're really trying to weaken them here, right?
Yeah, that's right. Taolo is the tribe that Tanya's on here. She switches to Lao Mei later, but yeah, no, I mean Tanya is probably the weakest member when you look at them on paper. It'd say either Ting-Ting or Tanya. But yeah, I think it is a good decision by Saula to rest their weakest player, send her to the Island of Secrets, and then that gives you an option to get rid of one of the stronger six, perceived stronger six, I should say. I do like this twist though, how Tanya gets the option to either go to tribal council or just sit out and await her turn, and then she can go and pick her tribe at the next tribe. So I think that's a great twist to add to the game, and it does add another factor because it really gives Tanya the option of either taking her game into her own hands or letting herself carry through to the tribe swap, and then figuring out where she wants to go, and also maybe even shaking up the tribes as well.
100%. I like the twists where, this isn't a thing like an idol where she's going to have it and she can hoard it until later in the game. A lot of the times when we see the US Survivor twists, it can be too OP at the end of the day. And it can be something that you can keep with you for a very long time, up until Final Five or the merge, I guess. But I like these kind of twists where you give players a decision to make, because it really is at the end of the day. Tanya is going to choose her own fate in this scenario, and she's going to go to the tribe that she feels most comfortable with. Now, we are going to start moving into that episode as well, and we might as well keep it on the whole topic of Tanya going to the Island of Secrets, deciding not to actually go back to her tribe, which is a great move on her part. She clearly realized that she was in the out there, and I don't know what gave it away. Maybe it was Felix not wanting her to be in the shelter, or the fact that they didn't want to utilize her actually in any of these challenges. But the one thing I wanted to touch on here with Tanya is that, she very much in this season reminded me of a Debbie Weiner, a coach type of figure. She even comes back from the Island of Secrets with the cane, walks in slowly, similar similar to Coach. And, fingers crossed, it sounds like we'll have her on the show. So I definitely want to ask her if she's seen any of these US Survivor seasons, but very much came across like that. Even the crazy stories, right? Like Coach had in Token Jeans.
I love Tanya, even from day one when she says what's kept her so young is marijuana. I mean, it's just she's just such a larger than life character. I really love it, and you're right, she is very similar to Debbie, and I especially drew comparisons with Game Changers and Debbie Warner there, where she was sent to Exile Island because she wasn't selected in the tribe swap, and then she obviously had that summit with Cochrane, and much the same in this season, Island of Secrets. Tanya goes to the Island of Secrets and she has a second chance. She gets to choose which tribe she goes to. And I mean, really, she was on the bottom, much like Debbie. I mean, there are lots of parallels there. And I really do love when we get these great larger than life characters because they just add so much more entertainment to the screen.
No, 100%. And, Tanya's decision here to me is an interesting one. Now, she's got the option of choosing any of the tribes. She could kick someone out of a tribe here. She does end up going for the tribe who already has fewer players than the others, and she gets into that three-person, I guess, advantage. And my feeling here is, and you correct me if I'm wrong on my read here, her and Felix had no love for each other. But maybe Jark was someone she was looking at as someone that she potentially could work with in that tribe. And then, obviously, Sipe also believes that a big part of it was the fact that Sipe believed that she was the person who saved Tanya, which is weird to me because it seemed like it was a tribe sort of decision, but somehow she thinks that Tanya understood that Sipe made that decision there, and maybe she felt comfortable with Sipe. I don't know if the truth's probably somewhere in the middle, but I feel like Jark and was the main person she probably saw there, and she thought, I'll go to where Jark is because I can semi-work with him. And she would have been pretty shocked because she's coming back to a tribe now, or one of the tribes that don't have Ting-Ting in it, and Ting-Ting was a ride or die.
Yeah, exactly. And she did have that closer bond with Jark, I suppose. But I think more so, and you do say that CP kind of saved her, or so CP thinks. But also they have that connection as being the older women on the tribe. And the advantage of going to a tribe like La Mei, where they already have two former Ta'alo members, the two former La Mei members, and CP, they can then get that three-number advantage, bring CP over to their side, and that gives them a 4-2 advantage then, which is obviously stronger than what you get on some of the other tribes, like on Saula, where you have, I think it was just Corbus, and on Ta'alo you had Dante and Merrill.
Yeah,
so
that
really
was
kind
the
of
other
mixing that a
option.
little bit. So Dante and Merrill, I think, with the other option on Ta'alo, and that only gives you, I mean, a 3-2-1 advantage or a 3-2-2 advantage there. So, I mean, by choosing the May and going with someone like Jark, who you trust somewhat, and CPay, someone that you could see yourself bonding with in the game, I think that's definitely the right decision for her here.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, with the tribe shakeup, one of the things that was quite interesting is seeing Dante, Rocco, and Rob all on the same tribe here. And you're just thinking to yourself, there's just no way anyone is going to beat these guys. They're going to win challenges all the way through until the merge. And sometimes the survivor gods can be really cruel. And I felt like they were being really cruel to the other tribes here, with having so many physical people here. Now, I want to backtrack a little bit to the beginning of this episode and touch on Jark because we just mentioned him as someone that you can trust, or to a certain degree. And in Tanya's mind, she obviously didn't see things go down in that previous tribal council, but Jark has really, he's got to start from the bottom this episode, and he is quite clear, and he lets us know that it could have been the biggest F up in the history of Survivor with what he did, and he clearly knows where he is. But one of the things I love about Jark here is that, he is a hustler. And that's the type of players that I like. He goes to this new tribe, and immediately when he gets a second, he runs down to the well where the previous idol was, and he does obtain another idol here, which shows us that he is continuing to think outside of the box. And this leads into a very interesting conversation with Felix, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Jark really is the type of player that he. We just finished watching Australian Survivor 2019, and I draw comparisons a lot to Dirty Harry on that season. Someone that was always on the bottom, but somehow managed to stay alive and scramble his way out of things. Whereas Harry was more of a social player. Obviously, Jark is using these advantages, and a great read to go straight away to the well and think, okay, well, it was here at the Tylo camp, and maybe it might be there at the Lamay camp. So a good decision on Jark's part. But yeah, he goes to Felix. And Felix, I think, just makes a very dumb move here by saying, all right, Jark, you have the idol. You trust me enough. Why don't you give me the idol, and then I'll know that I can trust you? I mean, Jark's just come to you and said, hey, mate, I have the idol. We can go places in this game. And Felix kind of expects Jark to just give it up. I mean, I don't know where Felix was thinking there, in that it doesn't garner him any trust on Jark's side. If Jark gives Felix the idol, I mean, that just means that Jark might be at risk here. And I don't think he has that bond with Felix, especially when you look at the old alliances as they were onto Arlo, where Jark and Ting-Ting were really close. And Jark kind of got berated a little bit there when he returned from that tribal council for having that advantage and playing this sort of slimy game. I don't think Felix really read that situation right. And that really did tick Jark off a little bit. And we do see him saying here and kind of planting the seed that I don't know if I can fully trust Felix, and he might be someone that once we've gotten rid of these old main members, maybe we get rid of him down the line because I don't know if I can go all the way in the game with him.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I'm very much a person that believes that if you find an idol in the game, you never tell anyone about it. Like, listen, if you're in a position where you've got to get into someone's good graces because you're at the bottom of the tribe, you've got nothing to lose. Definitely use it as a tool. I wasn't a fan of Jark telling Ting-Ting about the idol in the first episode because I felt like there wasn't that much for him to gain. He could have probably still had her close to him. And from having spoken to Ting-Ting, apparently they bonded really well, even before that part. So clearly he felt very comfortable to show her that idol. But I would have said if the connection was that strong to begin with, you keep that in the back of keep it in your back pocket. Don't tell people about this because it does put a target on you. You never know in a game like this who you can trust. But I feel like in this situation, they've just got into a new tribe. He's only got Felix there from his previous tribe, and he's just burned some of them in their eyes the night before. And a lot of people were, like you mentioned, quite hostile to him leading into this episode and the next day. So I understand why he tried to build that bridge back with Felix. And I feel like he was quite genuine in the sense that, listen, I'm telling you this because we've got each other. We don't have a choice here. And I mean, his other option is to work with Tanya. And we know that Jark has already said in confessionals that, Tanya isn't the player that he wants to be with long term. And he said that the only challenge she'll win is the challenge where who can tell the most elaborate lie or something like that, or the most elaborate story. So he's not going to, jump on her ship and go with her. So really, really bad play here from Felix to try and get the idol of him. Jark being a big fan like he is, like he said, chances of that happening is 0%. I'm not giving you my idol so you can vote me off and you've got the idol. That was never going to work. So all-round bad play here from Felix. But Felix is an interesting character because in the rest of this episode as well, we see him, and we saw this in his first tribe as well. He's the person that sits back and sort of lets other people do work. He bosses them around quite a bit. He seems like, and again, apparently he's a really nice guy outside of the show. So Felix, if you do ever listen to this is nothing personal on you. It's just how you're coming across on the TV show. And obviously the show needs to show us why you were getting voted out. And probably some of the stuff is, you were bossing people around quite a lot, and you tried to take lead, try to be the captain of the tribe. And if you're trying to be the captain or the leader, it's not a recipe for success.
You even saw that at the old Ta'alo tribe at the tribal council when Ting-Ting was given the boot, and Dante was kind of saying, well, we all know who's going home tonight. And Felix just says, yeah, it's Ting-Ting, she's going home. I really think he is this type of player that wants to dictate everything. And I mean, when Jark comes to you with an idol, you don't dictate the game. You play along with him and say, all right, I'm your ally here. You don't try and make a power move like that and say, give me your idol. It'll show that I can trust you and you trust me. It really is, as you said, a zero-sum game there for Jark. I mean, why would he give his idol to Felix, even if they're close in the game? I mean, it's Jark's idol at the end of the day. I did like how Jarrell sort of played this a little bit, how he created this fake immunity idol, and he was sort of brandishing this around camp and really trying to play off that, all right, guys, you don't know what's going on, adding a little bit of unpredictability into the game and potentially maybe keeping him and Rosalie safe if he could possibly play it off. But obviously we know Jark having the idol, it's kind of a bluff here. And we know that, that the Lau Mei idol is in Jark's hands right now.
Yeah, Durrell is a player that has got I've got a soft spot for him this season. I really love him. And I think that, a lot of the times they play the dodo music like they do in this scenario as well. But with Durrell, in a different situation, that would have worked. It just so happens that Jark already had the idol. He knew about the clue. And Durrell's sort of recollection of what the clue is, and that isn't even very clear. So it doesn't sound very convincing every time he tells Rosalie about that clue, and when he tells Jark about the clue, it doesn't sound very convincing. But I mean, Rosalie and Durrell's in the outs there, and they have to do something to try and stay alive. And it was actually quite nice to see them stick together right there until the end, because I have a feeling that Rosalie and Durrell wasn't necessarily allies in their first tribe, but they sort of bonded as being the two people here that were in the minority. Now, the other thing I wanted to touch on here is Rob going to his new tribe and being quite open about the fact, or not being open, but being quite deceptive in the fact that he sort of says that Paul had the idol, they voted him out, so the idols had to play. I think brilliant play here from Rob, brilliant from Nicole following, but all of this hard work that he's doing in this tribe here is getting undone by absolute stupidity on the other tribe with Nathan and Steffi. And Nathan and Steffi are just telling them everything, like saying that, listen, the idol was here, someone took the idol, the flint was here. But the funniest thing of all, and you can definitely comment on Nathan and Steffi and what they did there, is I picked up Jeffrey, really just laying in, oh man, there must be some really bad guys in your tribe. These guys must be really horrible. So I felt like that was very deliberate from Jeffrey, trying to paint a target on the previous tribe members of these guys.
I don't know what Nathan and Steffi's end goal is here, because we know that they are the amigos. These four are so tight, but yet Nathan goes to the new Saula tribe and he really just spills the beans and says, "All right, Rob has the idol. It's still in play. Paul didn't play the idol there," which is just bizarre to me as to why he would think that's a good idea, and especially with Steffi as well. Surely Steffi could keep him in check. You'd think that that four player alliance would at least have some common sense in saying, all right, if we get a tribe swap, what are we going to do, and what's our story here in terms of saying what happened with the idol? Because at this point in the game, you have to expect that at some stage you're going to be split up, and especially with something like that and an alliance that strong, you would think that you'd sort of align your eggs and put all your ducks in a row and sort of make sure that you're all telling the same lie, so that everyone else can believe the same thing in the game. But I do like how Rob is really playing it here, and I do find it ironic how after Paul went home, obviously Paul took the flint with him. They won the flint in the immunity
Yeah.
challenge, and then Rob goes home with the flint again. But we do see in the immunity challenge that Rob, playing the social game he is, and just being this nice game, he gives the flint back to the Saula tribe, which is a nice touch to see.
Now, the thing with Rob, obviously, as being someone that has spoken to him and have had, even still now, I've got communication with Rob. He's reached out to me a few times, which he didn't need to after the first interview that we had with him. Go check that out if you haven't seen it. It's Why You Should Watch International Survivor, and Rob Bentelli is on there as a guest on that panel. He's just a nice guy in real life. I can just tell he's a super nice guy in real life. So I feel like, we could say, yes, that was gameplay, but I actually think that he just felt really bad about the fact that he had the flint with him. He knew what it was like not to have a flint. And then obviously the bond between him and Nathan is pretty strong. And Nathan being the person that goes out there to get the flint as well is quite interesting. Now, similar to how, we've got both Nathan and Steffi not playing it well here, we also have Dante doing the exact same thing in the tribe with Rob, telling them everything about the previous tribal council, what Jark did, playing the idol. And, Meryl is seen as the person who's probably a little bit more savvy in that duo. And she's like, hey, I've got to keep these boys in check. She can't believe that, he's just spilling all of these beans. So overall, I feel like this season, there's a few players that played this game that weren't the biggest of fans. And from conversations I've had with previous survivors off air, I do think that there are a few people that played this game that didn't really play the game before. And it brings the argument up, is it sometimes more fun to have players play the game that aren't super fans? Because, we've gone to this position now in some places like the US where they cast so many super fans that it's almost like you see game bots play the game and it's less fun, where I feel like sometimes sloppy play like this can be entertaining.
I do like that there's a mix of sloppy players. I mean, you look at someone, it's just the unpredictable game players like Tanya that make it so much fun for me. If you have 20, I love Adam Klein, but if you have 20 Adam Kleins in a tribe, it's not going to be the most fun. It kind of reminds me this season a little bit of Token Cheens, in that you have that really out there character like a coach. And you also have these game players who are really good at strategy and the physical challenges, like a JT or a Rob Bentelli in this case. And you also have those more savvy players as well, like a Steven. I do like when you have that balance of the players that are playing really aggressive ball to the wall, and also those that are just dodos in the game. They don't know what's going on. They haven't got that strategy backing them up, really. So it is nice to see that sort of balance. And we also saw that in like other international Survivor seasons, like Australian Survivor, um, South Africa, Philippines as well is another great example of that. It is nice to see when they're sort of bouncing off each other. I do find the dynamic of this Ta'alo tribe is going to be really interesting because you have two members from each of the original tribes. Obviously, you have Dante and Meryl from the original Ta'alo. You have Nicole and Rob, who are the closest of allies from the original Sa'ula. And you have Letitia and Rocco, who again have proven to be a very unconventional bond, but they've grown really close over on the LMA tribe. So I am interested to see where it goes from there. Obviously, knowing that Rob has the idol on Ta'alo tribe, the original Sa'ula idol, it will be interesting to see how these guys sort of shake out because on the other tribes, you clearly have that clear minority, whereas on Ta'alo, everyone has a 2-2-2 equal split here.
100%. The question remains, will they ever go to tribal council though? Because they've got such a strong tribe, and my money is on those guys, especially with Rocco, Dante, and Rob all in the same tribe, and Nicole herself being pretty physical as well. I think they've got a pretty strong tribe there. The only real weak link in that tribe is Letitia, but she's really being sheltered by all these absolute beast of players around her, these mammoth players that are just going to be really good in the challenges. Now, I did want to touch on one last part here of this episode, and it's more about Rosalie and Doral going into the tribal and trying to put up a really valid fight here. Now, you mentioned that obviously they created the fake idol. There's a lot of conversation here from Doral, and it's one that I think is a really interesting sort of conversation if you ever do land on a minority position on a tribe swap. It is around the fact that when you get on that tribe, Doral says they've got a lot of he's got a lot of connections. I think he tried to make it sound like both him and Rosalie's got a lot of connections in the other tribe. And potentially, if you keep them there, we've got to think about the long term when we merge. We can help you get further in the game. But I feel like Jark really just outplays them throughout this tribal council with his rebuttals on everything that Doral and Rosalie brings up.
And it really is an unknown. You don't know how strong the other tribe are. And I mean, the Lame tribe, I mean, Doral might think he's safe, but little does he know that they're kind of coming for they'll come in for Rocco there over on Lame, and that four of Rosalie, Mumba, Mike, and Jeffrey were really the dominant force there. I don't see the benefit in Jark or someone like Tanya or Felix flipping on that Ta'alo tribe when they know they're strong and they know they also have the idol there. And also, I mean, they get CPay, which gives them 4. So ultimately, I mean, if you're in that position, unbeknownst to Felix, I mean, we obviously know that Jark is starting to plot to get rid of him. But if you're in that position from someone like Jark's perspective, that argument, as good as it is from Doral, it's an unknown and it really doesn't have any merit when you already have that strong 3 that can really stick together and ride it out until the merge.
Yeah, and I think going forward with having those 3 in that tribe together, Felix, Tanya, and Jark, that's where all the action is going to be, because that those are 3 people that you would have never thought would sort of have to work together in the game, and very different personalities. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that unfolds as we continue to go through this season. Now, Riley, is there anything that you had written down on your end, anything that you can remember that we should have touched on that we didn't touch on?
I think the only thing to add here is just it's going to be interesting to see how this Ta'alo tribe really shakes out from here, with Felix and Jark coming back to camp after this, and also CPay adding on to that as well. You have some very unpredictable players. I mean, Tanya obviously has proven herself to be a bit like a Debbie in this season and really unpredictable. And then obviously Jark, after playing that idol for Ting-Ting at the previous tribal council, it'll be interesting to see how he sort of handles it and tiptoes around from here. And we've also seen Doral has been a very savvy player in this last episode, creating that fake community idol and trying to fracture this Ta'alo alliance. So we know that we have a dysfunctional 3, as you say, on Ta'alo, just to see how they play out from here, especially when you throw in people like Doral and CPay who can really mix things up here as well. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And as mentioned as well, Sa'ula, I'm really all eyes on this tribe. I'm sorry, the original Ta'alo tribe. Dante, Meryl, Nicole, Rob, Letitia, and Rocco. You have those original tribal lines split. How it plays out from there. Can they keep winning challenges, especially with players like Rob and Dante and Rocco? I'm really interested to see how that plays out as well, and whether Rob can continue to play this really strong social game.
Yeah, and I want to finally just touch on Rosalie, the person who actually gets voted out here. You know, throughout these episodes, we don't get much airtime, we don't get much of her perspective. Obviously, being one of the players that's going to go out quite early, but she did seem like someone that struggled to form some of those bonds until she actually had to form it with Doral because they were both on the outside. She felt like somebody that probably played this game quite reserved as well throughout, and you know. I don't know if she was a fan, if she'd ever seen the game before, but I kind of felt like she was out of her element. And I wonder if it also was a case similar to what Ting-Ting said earlier in the interview, you know, where maybe she just was overwhelmed with everything that was happening with her being out there when you go play. Because you've got this thing in your head of how you think it's going to go, but when you actually get on the island, it's something very different.
And that early in the game as well, I think it's hard to really play and figure out how you're going to play. Are you going to kind of skate off the back of some alliances, or are you going to play and really take a game into your own hand? Because you don't want to be playing like Jark right now and sort of get the target painted on your back. So when the merge comes, you're the first one gone. You really want to kind of play the middle sort of game. So I understand how Rosalie and Ting-Ting have sort of played a passive game. I honestly don't blame them for it. I mean, if I was playing Survivor, I'd probably be playing a very passive game at this point and relying on others to sort of set the target in front of me, and maybe not as building as strong bonds. But when you're in this sort of minority number here, there's not much you can do when it's either you or Jarrell, and Jarrell has the hidden immunity idol on his neck. I mean, she's the one to go. I was a bit disappointed that we didn't get to see as much of Rosalie as we did in this season. Obviously, I mean, the focus was on Saula in those early episodes, and then that Tanya Ting-Ting dynamic on the Ta'alo tribe. So it was a shame we didn't get to see her too much. But while we did have her, it was really interesting to see that dynamic over on Lau Mei. And it's just a matter of how things shake out from here for Jarrell and whether he can recover.
Brilliant. So, guys, as always, great to have you here. I hope you enjoyed this interview. If you like the content that we're putting out there, we hope that we've earned your subscription today. You know, hit the subscribe button, potentially hit the notification bell if you want to be notified whenever these things are dropping, and even leave a like. You know, it does help with the algorithm and putting our videos out there. We will be back this weekend to talk about Survivor Global once again, and fingers crossed, if everything works out well, we'll have Tanya on the show to talk to us as well. So really looking forward to that chat, because I feel like, Riley, we're going to be in for a ride, and she'll probably be able to tell us a lot more than just what happened in the show as well. She just seems like quite a fascinating person in general.
She's such a fun character, Chris. I really hope we can talk to Tanya on this next episode. It'll be really exciting just to have a chat with her and see how she played that game, because she has played up until this point a very interesting game from the bottom, and just to hear some of Tanya's stories as well would just be brilliant. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
Great. Well, see you guys on the weekend. Thanks.